Okay, so I think everybody comes here. Okay, just a moment, please.
It's okay.
Okay, so this is the second webinar on action plan. So we are here for having knowledge of action plan. So these are the fellows of Uruguay and Paraguay. So you can see these details of real-time webinar. So we have 15 minutes of the first presentation, and after delivering presentation from Uruguay, Mr. Choi will give you some feedback on it. And after that, we have second presentation. And then also we have feedback on action plan. And after finishing those things, we have time for discussion. So at the time, you can have questions on action plan or building action plan, or we can talk together. Okay. Okay, so can you start right now? Who will be the presenter of the Uruguay? Ramiro, are you the presenter for action plan?
Let me see. If I started to share a screen with you, I stop your sharing property. It's okay?
Okay.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, let's see. First of all, for everybody, again, the presentation of our team. I'm the last one, Ramiro Rosselli, but the first, Germán Stasinyuk and Hernán Boituret. They are both from ANI, which is the National Agency of Innovation and Investigation and Research. And now, and I work at the Ministry of Industry, Energy, and Mining specifically in the industrial policy area as a consultant. Maybe our brothers, our Paraguayan brothers know where we are, but for the rest of people, Uruguay is located in South America, in the South Cone, which is the region formed by Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay. And then the political division of our country, we're divided in departments. Each department has its own regional government and its own characteristics, as we will see after. In this map, in this political map, pay attention to Rivera, as Germán talked before, but then all the border departments have to be especially focused about this kind of project like Technopark.
Él tiene que el 1144 llega al 17, ese sabemos.
Just a resume about our economy. Our GDP rise up to 56 and 56 billions approx. And our economic growth rate has been going down in the last 3 years.
NPK, que son para agrofértil, 1.000 toneladas.
About trade, we have a surplus between exports and imports. Our exports are about $9 billion and our imports are about $8 million. Our principal trading countries are China, then Brazil and Argentina, which are our countries with which we have common frontiers. And in the fourth place, the United States of America. Our employment rate it's about 53%, which is one of the lowest rates in last years. And our unemployment rate has risen up to almost 10%, and it's projected to rise up even more, even higher, to 13% at the end of this year, mainly because of the pandemic's effects. A little scope about our industry. We have three major industries. The first, oil refinery. Despite we don't have petroleum reservoirs, our country imports crude oil to refine in this refinery. The refinery is located in Montevideo, which is the capital city, at the bottom south of the country. Then we have an increasing number of cellulose pulp production mills. Now we have settled two pulp mills, and it's a third being constructed in the center of the country. And then beverage concentrates from a mill located also in the south of Uruguay, not in Montevideo, but in Colonia, near Argentina. The level of technology of our exports, as you see in this table, is based in commodities, and in second place, natural resource-based manufacturers. I think that's an index to improve, to enhance in the next years. For example, by setting TPs abroad, TPs all around our country. Our major exports are beef, cellulose pulp, dairy products, and beverage concentrates. As you can see, cellulose pulp and beverage concentrates are mentioned as the second and third major industries. So it expands in our export goods, and in our export kind of foods, excuse me. And our main destination, as you see before, are China, European Union, Brazil, and USA. European Union considered as a collective, as a group of countries, surpasses Argentina in this table of exports. And about imports, we focus on vehicles and auto parts, chemicals, medicine, and plastics as a group of products, and meat. Maybe it sounds a bit frustrating to export a lot of meat, a lot of beef, and to import meat. But for example, we import meat from Paraguay, Brazil, and then Argentina, in order to assure the local consumption of this food, and then export the best meat abroad. Our principal origins of imports are Brazil, China, Argentina, and USA. And finally, about human resource, we have more than 500,000 workers focusing on the whole industrial activities, which are classified in the industrial classification and then only 1.5% of these 500 million workers are set to R&D operations. This indicator is one to try to rise up in the next years. For example, installing a Technopark in Uruguay. Excuse me my bad resolution, but that's all we have. This is the country map of the existing institutions, like or assimilated to science and technology parks. There are 8 of these placements. seven of eight are called or are habilitated, are authorized by the Industrial Parks Law. The Industrial Parks Law was approved in uh, uh, 2002, and then one of them, the Scientific and Technological Park of Pando, about 80 kilometers from the capital city, has a special and a specific legal frame, and that's the only that is authorized to use the industrial the scientific technological park name. In Uruguay, we are very careful about the level, the use of labels. So you can't use the name industrial park, or almost it's almost a trademark, industrial park and scientific and technological park. As you can see, they are concentrated near the capital city or near border cities like Colonia, Paysandú, and Salto. In this table, just to explain or just to remark a situation that is eating our brains nowadays. In this year, in 2020, we started the process to rethink or redesign the legal frame, because the last three mentioned in this table, located in Salto and Canelones, are cases of industrial parks that are approved. When you see, when you read the type IP, we mean industrial park, and STP, as I mentioned before, is the only scientific and technological park in this country. But the last three are authorized as an industrial park, but they have no ventures installed, and they don't have ventures as authorized as users, because the only way to fully benefit from the tax benefits provided in a legal frameworks for industrial parks and scientific technological parks is for the ventures that are that try to install in an industrial park is to be authorized as users. It's not enough to just settle in the industrial park. You have to achieve the official authorization by the Ministry of Industry, Energy, and Mining. And you can see in the first 8 cases of this table that there's a lot of ventures installed in industrial parks, but less than 10% of the ventures installed in our industrial parks are really or are finally authorized as users. So that's a sub-utilization of benefits to be installed in industrial parks. So as a consultant in a government agency or as a government minister, we have to do something about that. It's a kind of photo of our Jane, this table. Well, after having presented the state of the art, the situation of our country, we prepare a SWOT analysis. Maybe I am not going to read all the things in this country, but I have to focus on 2 or 3 elements of each quadrant. In particular, in our strengths, the state has invested many money in digitalization, e-government, and connectivity. As we saw in the lectures, I think this kind of strengths can be as a point to make force and to change the situation. All the indices that we criticize as lowered, maybe have an impulse supported on this kind of strengths. The state's investment in innovation, science, and technology has been rising up year by year, despite we are still below 1% of GDP in these topics. And there are some tax benefits for R&D, for research and development companies that might attract ventures to settle in our country. And thinking green, we have this grid index that 98% of our energy matrix is generated by renewable sources. We have raised up wind and photovoltaic ratio of generation in the last 15 years. Some opportunities we are trying to consolidate some regional development projects in institutions like technoparks or industrial parks, or also free zones. Also important, the university. We are passing through a process of universities and decentralization. Before 2005, 95% of universities were located near the capital city. Then we started to open sedes. Excuse me, I lost a word. Some locations of university in the interior of our country. And one of the advantages that we are capitalizing is that we are looking at the growing of startups related to Industria 4.0, Industry 4.0. Some of our weakness and threats, our market size is very slow, and it's combined with our fiscal deficit that this year would be about 5% of GDP. And also we have a strong dependence on the strategic and budgetary definitions by current government. So it was very difficult for us to make a projection for investment in projects like CPs. That's one. I think that's the worst defy for our work in this case. About threats, we have a very high weight of social security system over GDP. My neighbors don't let me remember the number, but yesterday we were talking about this, and I get really surprised. And we have high tax ratio compared to other Latin American countries. So we suffer a lack of competitiveness compared to the region. And also it's important to remark that some science, technology, and innovation institutions have overlapped functions. So we suffer a lack of integration between government, university, and companies to try to make a synergy in these topics. And related to the before mentioned, we have a low rate of graduates in science, technology, engineering, and math, or mathematics. We have an interesting rate of input to the university, but very low rate of graduations. So we see where we are, and we have to define what to do. And maybe because of the lectures, we assume that we have to strengthen the legal frame. As you see before, we have some legal frame previously developed, We have the law about promotion of investments. We have the law about industrial parks. We have the law about science and technology parks. We are still working on the regulation decrees about the last one, the science and technology parks. So I think we think it's the moment to focus on revise, modify, or even redesign from zero in order to adapt our reality to the example of action special cases concerning support for technoparks that Korea mentioned in every lecture. Maybe it sounds surprisingly because Hernan and Germán are economists and I'm an engineer, and now we are talking about legal frame. But maybe you from Korea put the chip in our brains to understand the important, the key importance of legal frame, an adequate legal frame developed to settle a technopark model. And thinking about what to do, we try to select a specific city in our country to settle the technopark. And also we try to define a mark, FBTP, in Fray Bentos Technopark. Fray Bentos is the city near Argentina that we select considering logistics reasons, educational reasons, the absence of a previous industrial park or scientific and technological park, and also some we must mention some historical and cultural situations. The first industry settled in Uruguay was settled in Fray Bentos. The Anglo Frigorífico Anglo, it's a place settled by British companies to add value to our cattle, to export beef. And near Fray Bentos was the place where the first global, considered globally, the first ship with refrigeration was armed and went to France from a city near Fray Bentos. So that's an important historical reason to select Fray Bentos. Then we try to make numbers to calculate costs. We have the lucky that we found information about other institutions assimilable to a technopark, and which we could make we think a really accurate estimation of the cost, considering, for example, that of all the assets of the technopark, 40% it's about equipment and 60% it's about building. And then we could use some estimations about the operational cost, defining a team, a group of professionals to manage the operation and maintenance of this institution. Then we settle the Gantt of this project. As you can see, the first year we supposed to do legal work in order to let our country, our economy, our industry to recover from the crisis, the pandemic crisis, because we are nowadays still in this storm eye. So we think, or we decided that it would be better to let the time pass and at least 1 year before starting the core of this new project. We are assuming that in the last 2 quarters of 2024, we could launch the selling of pilot services and operational capacity. excuse me. Well, finally, I don't know. Well, I'm a bit some lessons learned. As I remarked before, the first step is the best law. So we repeat law, law, law. As Mujica said 10 years ago, education, education, education. What we must say in this kind of institution, first law. You must have the best team, the best persons. Really, we can merge. We can interact very well with Herman and Hernan. We think about one lecture in particular, creative thinking versus lack of budget. The photo of a Technopark that first became from containers open our eyes or turn our eyes wide open because there's no need a lot of money. First law and then creative thinking. We were very surprised about how available was information in Uruguay. Not all information was available, but the key information was available for us. So we appreciate or we define that we don't have to underestimate what we have done in Uruguay. It's important to be clear about our past, our before our steps done. As someone from Paraguay said, dream big, but with feet on the ground. But I can really appreciate how important is industrial policy as a tool for development. And industry is not only about chimneys, because maybe you have try to think how to turn ideas to real. That's the key for a chemical engineer like me. And finally, we are very very thank to all of you. And I remark a claim said by Maestro Tavares, the technical manager of our national football team. The path is the reward. I think these lectures, this course was the first path of the first step of a long path of cooperation between Korea and Uruguay. Very thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ramiro. Thank you. Yeah, it was quite impressive and interesting about the lessons you learned. So from now on, Mr. Joy will give you some feedback and comment about it. Sure, start.
Mr. Ramiro, thank you for your good presentation and all your major industry. What's your competitiveness in your in oil refinery? What's the competitiveness in oil refinery of a major industry?
When we talk about the major industry, is because is the major contributor to our GDP, but we don't think this situation is based on competitiveness difference or competitiveness gap between others. It's just a kind of statistical reason why is the first or the major industry. Because of that's the only refinery that serves the whole country. It's a question of size, not a question of competitiveness. To remark this analysis, the firm, the venture that leads the refinery is the national refinery, ANCAP, and it's being questioned about a lack of efficiency, a lack of excuse me. It's questioned about the lack of efficiency. it's being revised and redesigned in order to improve or enhance his results. It's not a question of competitive difference.
What's the main country for importing crude oil?
I couldn't hear.
Which country do you import for crude oil?
Crude oil we import from last year's major quantity from Venezuela, but everybody knows the actual situation of Venezuela. We import crude oil from countries like Middle East countries and Venezuela. Our refinery can refine the heavy crude oil like Venezuela type of Orinoco Shore and other types of crude oils because it's a maybe it is one of the strengths of our refinery that can manage or can process many types of crude oil. Maybe it's one of the only competitiveness differences of our refinery.
Do you have any plan to develop the downstream industry following the oil refinery?
Excuse me, can you repeat?
Do you have any plan? Do you have any plan to develop downstream industry following oil refinery?
Maybe I could ask some cooperation from my fellows, Herman and German and German.
Ramiro. No, Uruguay doesn't have plans to refine oil or we are a refiner country, so we don't have other plans in this kind of activity.
Uruguay has been Uruguay has firm contracts of exploration and prospection, but we don't have arrived to a feasibility of exploring refinery from the shore, from the seashore, for example, because the quantities or the qualities of the hydrocarbons are not technical rent. They have no rentability. Excuse me for my time. As I resume, we are not taking in consideration to explode hydrocarbons, only refine. Maybe in 20 or 30 years, when all the reserves in other countries make the price rise up, becomes feasible to explode hydrocarbons.
Our current budget not allow us to explore other options in this day. We Uruguay situation nowadays is in red because of our final fiscal debt. So it's impossible nowadays consider the option of other activities unless refiner or oil.
I am kindly suggesting that you should diversify your industrial structure from the strong point, such as oil refinery industry and pulp industry. For them, you should set strategic plans for developing your industry or any other, including any other industry. So the most important industry for developing your country in the future is downstream industry following oil refinery, because you have some a strong point for that industry. Okay.
Okay.
And your report is shown that SDP and IPS is having 11. So do you have any difference between SDP and IP in function?
I wonder if you could write the question, because I can't use the audiophone and the microphone, so it was very difficult to listen the question. Excuse me, please.
What do you think? What do you think is the difference between SDP and IP in your country, especially in function for developing your industry and SME?
Well, as I told in the lessons learned, for example, we in Uruguay we are addicted to labels. So when you think about the industrial parks model, we only think about production functions, no, traditional industry, manufacturing industries. So talk about technoparks or scientific and technological parks. It's an excellent way to ampliar, letra Hernán, to make a wide vision of industry. Not only chimneys, maybe software, hardware assembled to a drone for agricultural services, or maybe the same strength of the traceability of our cattle production, explore the feasibility to make traceability to all our food. We produce food for 10 times our population. How about adding value to the next apple from Uruguay that you are going to eat in Seoul or other cities in Korea, being traced to in which land was farmed this apple. I think this is the key potential to add value in our country, focused on food production, for example.
On the point, I'd like to recommend that you should have a mixed strategy between SDP and IP for developing your industry and supporting SMEs, including startups.
Okay, answering the second question that Sunmi put in the wall. In Uruguay, we have institutions that support SMEs companies, but for example, we don't have a ministry of SMEs company. We have different institutions that support, but this institution function as individuals. It's not a system that function in a unique way. If I have to compare with Korea system, we have in Uruguay and a weakness in this point. So for us, it's important that our new government take into account this point, and perhaps in the future we will have a ministry specific on SME companies.
And that is where the overlapping occurs. A lot of institutions and not a minister.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Rugelli, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and information about the status and the development plan. Yeah, I think we don't have enough time, so we should move on to the second presentation. Who will be the presenter of the action plan from Paraguay? Mr. Federico, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Professor. I'm going to start sharing my screen, if you allow me to.
Okay, just a moment.
Okay. We'll try to respect time because we have a lot of meetings scheduled here in Paraguay, a lot of investors, and all the meeting rooms are busy. But we're very honored to be here with you. Can you see my screen so far? Okay, so thank you, everybody. This is the action plan for Paraguay, for our proposal for our Technopark. I'm going to start scrolling. These are our members, Mr. Aníbal Jiménez Culac, Ms. Megan Cubas, myself, Mr. Sebastián Bogado, Ms. Noelia González, Mr. Fernando Talavera, all members of MIC and REDIEX. REDIEX is the network to promote investment and exports. It's an integral part of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce here in Paraguay. If one of my colleagues can please check the time so we make sure that we stay under the 15 minutes that has been allocated by us. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will continue. Basically, our proposal has these 3 chapters: status of the economy, economic development, outline of proposed Technopark model. What we've seen here first is the status of the economy and industry. This is very similar to what we had in our first report. I won't spend too much time on these, but Paraguay's GDP is almost $40 billion. Our economic growth rate has been very positive in the last years. The status of trade has improved significantly. Major industries are auto parts and food and beverage, pharmaceutical, textile, garments, wood processing, leather processing. Let me take this out here for a second. The service sector is also increasing significantly. Uruguay is one of our major trading partners and major investors. We welcome all the investment from Uruguay. We work very closely with them, within Mercosur. Our level of technology industry, we're 7 out of 10 companies use basic technology. We're improving on this. I won't spend too much time on this, gentlemen, because we've already done this in the previous presentation, but we wanted to include this again because it was a requirement of the proposal. I want to focus more on the proposal. Now, we did include these graphs, Sophia and Mr. Professor, regarding the main import markets and export markets. This information is present here as well. Let me see if I can change the view to make it more friendly for everybody. Okay, great. That works for everybody, I assume. Everybody hears me well? Good connection? Okay, great. So status of the economy, we already had this in the previous industry, but this is the size of the national supply and growth international demand for products of Paraguay. As you see, we've increasing a big demand in a lot of our products, and Paraguay is going up on the value scale. We're also going into high value light manufacturing. We're replicating the South Korean model of the 60s and 70s through our export oriented industrialization growth. The textile garment industry is one of our highlights. There we have increasing human resources here, the pharmaceutical industry as well. We're walking through the report. And we also have, this is a list of importing markets for pharmaceutical products, our major buyers, supply markets of these products as well. Let me just skip ahead. I'm going to focus more on our proposal, right? Our economic development goal. So we're starting here, and what we've mentioned is our proposal. We want to strengthen relationship within the auto parts regional value added chain between global companies and local SMEs as suppliers to increment domestic value added, technology transfer, labor force, and new job creation. Uh, we had a small analysis of why this is important. Because of the trade war between the United States and China, economic and trade disruptions, we're seeing a great opportunity on the localization of value chains. We're seeing that basically big auto suppliers don't want to have extensive supply chains. They want to have closer supply chains. This is an opportunity for Paraguay to integrate itself with the region, considering as well we've signed an auto parts agreement between Brazil, Argentina, and we're looking forward to sign one with Uruguay. There was one question about the Global Competitive Index. Paraguay is ranked 97th out of 141 economies. We do have a project here by the European Union to improve Paraguay's Global Competitive Index. This is something that's being worked. And these are factors on where we are strongest in Paraguay: health, macroeconomic stability, infrastructure. But we need to improve in innovation, airport connectivity, quality of road infrastructure, institutions, and market size. Great. Now, development field. This is a quick analysis that we had on the capacity of industrial size. We have this REAL, which is a very important registry in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, which allows us a big analysis of all of industries. It's a big database. It's very useful. Now we want to also highlight that which will support our Technopark proposal, the AS, right? The joint stock simplified companies. This is similar to the SAS model in Argentina. This will be implemented soon. This will really help. This is here the case of AS by a law that's been recently created. It'll be quickly created in 8 days. Infrastructure, we're working very closely on the different projects. We also have international negotiations with South Korea regarding the infrastructure and other issues such as free trade. Let me just quickly advance. This is more the diagnostics parts of the report. Now we're getting into the meat of the report. Sorry for the extensive delay regarding the diagnostics. Now our SWOT analysis, economy and industry of the country. Our strength as the government support and budget. We're committed to supporting industry and attracting foreign direct investment. We have a low-cost production. We have interesting tax incentives. Labor force, very young and ample labor force. I don't want to chime on my Uruguayan counterparts, but our population is twice the size and we're more younger. And it's more cheap to produce in Paraguay. But of course, we also value the human resources that Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay shares with us. We have a new simplified business creation law that's been launched on November 11th. Now, weaknesses are low-level R&D. We can do better. We can learn our lessons from our Uruguayan brothers who invest heavily in R&D. We do have a relatively unskilled labor force in some areas, but we're working on this. We have sometimes a weak infrastructure, but we're heavily investing on this, and sometimes a weak relationship between industry and university. Although we're building 2 new scientific universities, one in cooperation with Taiwan and another cooperation with Germany. An opportunity, the increase on the youth population, initiated projects dedicated to help SMEs and customer service, market research, marketing, business network. These are all our projects on European Union, with the IDB, with other multilateral governments, and specifically now this auto part research center that we're inaugurating with Korea, with some of my colleagues can go into detail. We have, yes, the initiated projects dedicated to support the automobile sector agreement with Brazil and Argentina. This will allow Paraguay to take advantage of its significant location in Mercosur to provide auto parts for the value chains in Brazil and Argentina, local presence of global auto parts companies, especially in the wire sector. Now, threats, absent of support of law for startups, this is something we need to work on. Low business culture to work under the cluster network model. This is something we can definitely learn from the South Korean model. No special financial funds. There are some, but they're not that as many as needed. And then the poor mechanisms between university, enterprise, government for the enhancement of regional development goals. How are we doing on time so far? I think we're doing good, right?
Yes, it's okay. You
Now,
have 8 minutes more.
great, exactly. I really want to stay under the 15 minutes. So Paraguay has around 23 industrial parks, only one government owned. Privately owned parks are mostly real estate investments providing basic warehousing. So they need to implement a Technopark as a tool for regional development to upgrade industries and catalyst between large global enterprises, local SMEs, universities. So the first TP will be established in one of the most important industrial and economic regions, Alto Paraná, which borders Argentina and Brazil, where the success rate will be high considering the large number of foreign companies, the many government incentives and services, and access to the largest regional market. Yesterday, we had talked with 40 Paraguayan businessmen from Codeleste, and we mentioned a little bit about this project, and they were really interested because really there is a potential in using industrial parks in Alto Paraná. So going to the specific proposal, we have the STP, the Parque Tecnológico Itaipú, the PTI. These are similar institutions that are working in the region. Here, what you see is the picture of the PTI near Itaipú. The main functions of the STP is foundation made up of specialized professionals who contribute to development of innovation. The PTI, which is a current existing technopark in Paraguay, is focused on technologies for the operation of hydroelectric plants, energy technologies, automation and control technologies, and territorial development. They work very closely with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce in advising us on energy matters, and they do R&D with all electricity and know-how of Itaipú. It's located in your Alto Paraná department. It has opened in 2013. Employees not available on this slide, but I know they have between 80 to 100 employees. Other examples of technoparks which should development in Paraguay is the future potential technopark in Asunción's digital district, which is part of our digital agenda with support of the IDB, the Hohenau Science Park, which is being implemented in Itapúa, which my colleague Megan, my colleague Noelia have informed me of, the Concepción Technological Park, which we are working with Megan and other colleagues, which will be on the north, which will be a very strategic location. That is still very green, but we see one of the benefits of taking this course is that we will learn the appropriate tools to advise them to push forward on this project. Now, going to the chapter 3, outline proposed Technopark model to Paraguay. Our mission to establish a model prototype for Paraguay's first innovative technopark. You focus on upgrading industry for the traditional automobile sector, auto parts, and in new technologies such as hydrogen and electric vehicles. Why we mention these? Because we have a national hydrogen strategy and also a national electric vehicle strategy. And Paraguay being strategically located in the heart of South America, we can import significant lithium resources from Bolivia, from Chile, from Argentina, the northern areas, to work on lithium battery production, to export, say, buses or cars to Brazil, Argentina, or to Uruguay. We have low cost, strategic location, unbeatable advantages. So that's where we feel the Technopark should focus on. It's like a really quick win, a great opportunity. Goals: to develop knowledge in the field of car industries, especially in the latest technological trends on motorization, fuel, and engine. To lead R&D to become reference and last generation of cars regionally and globally. Why? Because we can also have an advantage for the creation of engines for hydrogen cars or hydrogen trucks. They need engines that are high density steel. We have the factories that produce the additives to add to the steel to make it more high dense. These are all electro-intensive industries, which Paraguay has an advantage. We also have titanium, another required component necessary for high-grade hydrogen car engines. So objectives: to foster business and growth of SMEs, to implement policies aimed to develop industrial capacity. Our main functions: R&D, with using a joint research center, a joint laboratory, using the triple helix model. We would have basically business development for enterprises, business entrepreneurship, training programs, innovation seminar. We would also have big data centers in this project, and we have space for tenants, some features and advantages using existing national laws, special tax-free advantages, and the timeline between 2021 to 2023. So far, we would have some major issues. Did I go back? No, I'm good. Here. So Alto Paraná is a strategic area. This is like another analysis on why it would make sense. It's close to Brazil. It has an international airport. It has an international airport for cargo and passengers. We would use existing laws and policies to support it, expedite the process to set up companies, guarantee to the right of properties, expedited residency documents, exemption of temporary suspension, exoneration of temporary value-added tax under the maquila regime as well, free trade zone laws, public-private laws, value-added tax exemption on airports, and it's a list of incentives that we already have and that we can actually look forward to. So side of the budget, we're looking forward to assign a budget from the government of Paraguay through FONACIDE funds, which are allocated to Alto Paraná and select cities, electric subsidies, and funds from the Itaipu National Dam. Manpower analysis, we would have the SINA Focal and SPP, which are our training centers. They would be geared to support the fund. We would also have capacity building programs as well. But yes, we would need more additional help in the training system for the park. Now going into the other areas, and then I will actually let the floor to my colleagues. Required budget, 39 million in 3 years. The building would be 5 million per year because we would do like a stagnated building, but we can also maybe readjust this so we can invest more towards the start. Equipment, 5 million per 15 years. Operational costs, 3 million per year. So we learned a lot about the financial projectations in the STP course. You know, we said our focus must be to compare the situation of Paraguay to South Korea in 1960s and the ability of Paraguay to create an economy. For us, it's very clear our country should improve the existing conditions in the current industrial park and the PTI, but also look forward to implementing this new proposal. So yes, here's a better detail on our budget, right? As you see, we can do it at a cheaper cost than in Uruguay, but yes, there are other challenges that could increase in cost. This is an example of our tech park that we will create in Alto Paraná area. And this is an action plan timetable, establishing a master plan, building the Technopark, local capacity building, operating phase. It would all be between 2021 to 2023 when the current government, its terms finishes. That's very, very important on the political connotations because we want to make sure, you know, that no project stands unfinished between presidential terms. So AGS is existing industrial parks in Paraguay, not technological parks, and their activities aren't connected to other institutions. We want to go to industrial parks escalates to technological parks, and they start functioning as UIG integrators by committing to regional SME development. We have a very reduced number of research centers activities not related to industrial centers. Reference of integrated research centers nationwide and abroad through a cooperation and partnership with other international research centers with regional impact on social development. So why we're mentioning this a lot, because we do have research needs and we do have private sector companies and government institutions who do research, but they are not that coordinated. We need to put them all under one roof. And in fact, what we're discussing with the colleagues is a similar model where we would find research challenges, where we would look for companies overseas and nationally who want to improve on technology, who want to substitute imports, and bring those as research challenges to the park. So you would not only be researching, say, on pure science or on a startup and then trying to find the market. You already have the market already identified from the get-go. So the advantage of Paraguayan Science Technopark model is that we do have the market already. We just need to make sure we develop the capacities to satisfy that market demand. It's very tangible and concrete results. So that makes it, I think, easier and more easier to motivate. Good perspectives of regional integration, especially in a field that our proposed TP we focus, but not so many labor forces to absorb all opportunities. Yes, we need to focus on the creation of jobs. That's why I think it's very important that we have the session with our cousins from Uruguay, because a lot of Uruguayan investment that comes to Paraguay is interested in finding complementarities. Maybe the Uruguay Technopark can develop some specific technology that could satisfy a market demand in Paraguay, and then we can actually scale it up here with an easier regulatory development, easier access of labor force, and other factors. So that's a report. I think I stayed under time. I'm not sure, colleagues, if somebody can tell me. And apologies if we spoke so fast. So let me stop.
50 minutes exactly. Thank you for your presentation. So it's time for feedback.
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about some point for successful technopark business. First, I'd like to talk to you on global competitiveness. What do you think of how to improve your rating on GCI 4.0?
Okay, how can we improve our rating? Well,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
actually working on different projects. We mentioned we have a European Union cooperation program, specifically working on improving this lecture. And we're also working on interinstitutional teams within the different ministries to improve our ranking in the doing business, which is part of that. We since 10 to 15 years ago, we've worked in the European Union on working on competitiveness matters. FOCOSEP was one of the initial programs. I think my colleague Aníbal Jimenez knows a little more details on the European Union programs. I don't know, Aníbal, if you want to chime in and
Thank you,
maybe add a little
Federico.
bit.
Mr. Choi, this is one of this government's main target is to improve our ranking in the doing business ranking. So in this matter, we are working currently with EU funds, which is also participating in the World Bank. And basically, we are working on establishing a more legal frame for short period of time for registration of companies and also basic services. We expect in the next probably end of the year and next year have a better qualification in this ranking. One of the recommendations from the World Bank was to simplify operating businesses, reduce time, and this new law was implemented just in September. So we're working on now introducing it under electronic registration.
And I can attest, Professor, just adding on to what anyone mentioned, that competitiveness is something that's very forefront in our minds. We have the Paraguay National Institute of Quality. Many of the companies are adhering to international standards, and we're looking forward to improve our standing in this area. I think you had other questions as well that you sent us, right? Should we start answering those as well, Professor? You were asking, are there long-term grant plans, including quantitative indicators for developing the nation or region? Well, yes, we are working on the National Development Plan 2030. It's a grand vision. We started out this in 2014. Thanks also as well to Korean cooperation. And this has been reviewed this year. We've actually added 3 axes. We added one fourth axis, which is the political institutional axis, because we understand the perception, international perception of Paraguay is that we're not as an institutional solvent country. That is more of a myth than a reality. We're a very institutional country with respect and adherence to contracts and laws. That's why we also upgraded our national development plan to show the political institutional context. We're undergoing transparency and open government reforms. We're upgrading and modernizing the judicial system. All 6 out of our 9 Supreme Court justices have been selected by merit contest and the Supreme Court. Our public ministry as well, and all of the public prosecutors. So we're actually achieving a high degree of rule of law in that area. And the upgrading of our national development plan is an example of such. It's aligned to the SDG goals, and that national development plan through the National Planning Ministry and ministries such as MEEC and others is aligned by our midterm planning and our 5-year plans in each ministry. And there are indicators, there are performance indicators, process indicators, impact indicators. So you can see a fine line going from the indicators of the industrial parks all the way to the national development goals. And that way we've learned from the experiences of countries such as South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and others of doing this very well-precise planning. And we're looking forward to implement this.
Yeah, so you can answer for the next question.
Yes, exactly. And you were asking us, are there any strategic industries specified by industrial parks? No, under current legislation, industrial parks don't have a strategic focus necessarily, unless one of my colleagues wants to correct me. We don't have specific themes. This is a disadvantage. This is something we want to improve. But we do foment and ask these industries that eradicate in the current industrial parks to be labor intensive, to be industries that, they focus on our national strategy for attraction of investments. That said, with this Technopark proposal, we want to focus on high-tech industries, automobile parts, integrate also as well the PTI park of energy and controls, especially in the automobile sector. We want to focus on one of our big strategies of the investment attraction, which is light manufacturing. And in this case, take advantage of this opportunity in Brazil and Argentina. I don't know if other colleagues want to chime in. Anibal?
Federico,
Yes.
just a comment. Within all these industrial parks, there is only one which specializes in chemical processing. That industrial park is concentrated or established near capital city. And regarding the environmental agency, it has a mandatory that all industries processing chemicals shall be installed due to regulations and control. And we have learned from previous technical assistance from our Taiwanese colleagues that we should establish activities or preferential activities under industrial parks, and we should diversify and we should separate activities. Not all industrial parks are common, especially related to waste treatment or requirements of special services that sometimes increase prices of establishing under industrial parks. So SMEs usually need a low cost tenants or low cost of production. So why pay for a high cost of a water treatment plant, for example? So that type of analysis we should do in the future.
Thank you very much, Anibal. That's very informative. Our ministry is so big and so complex that sometimes those details we don't learn. But I really appreciate it. We learn everything. We learn new things every day. And yes, and going through the other questions you had for us, are there any difference in functions between your industrial park shown and then the one that you're proposing, right? Yes, our current industrial park model is limited. I mean, we just have, in case of the government industrial park, we have one warehouse that's been built and then available land to build new warehouses, right? Other industrial parks that have been habilitated by the private sector are just warehouses. They're waiting to receive the factories, and they already have municipal permits. They already have some environmental permits already authorized. Now, the one that you show in South Korea, and then when we want to propose, we want to include these R&D functions to support SMEs, prototype models, and other. It's to become something more developed. I don't think we'll maybe reach into a dormitory, but we want to integrate it more broadly. And then the question number 5, I don't know, maybe anybody else wanted to complement that? Differences between the STPs as proposed and the current situation? I don't know, Elio, Sebastian. Yeah, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but just in case you want to chime in. And then if the connection strategy between the existing IPs and newly established technoparks, yes, with Megan Cubas, who's participating here as well, with Mr. Anibal Jimenez and all my colleagues, this course is a very timely course because we are currently right now receiving proposals for science technoparks in Concepcion and Honenao. So with this new knowledge that we're learning, we will actually be able to give better feedback, advise better, and orient the local governments and to create these technoparks. And of course, we will actually be able to take advantage of this opportunity. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about Hohenau or Concepcion. Okay. And then you said, is it well grounded for making the midterm plan as under? If our budget is realistic, I think that's what I understand from the question. Yes, I think we have a realistic budget. It's within the ballpark for regional cost. It could be more efficient in some areas, but but sometimes the construction costs, get out of hand, as you might know. But we have to basically probably need more time to refine some other budget areas. I don't know if our budget specialist Sebastian wants to talk about the budget. Give us.
Well, yes, I was the one that completed that part of the proposed park, and we can adjust our budget, but it's like the first approach what we decided to do, and obviously we can adjust because this is like just theoretical at least at this level of development. This is a proposed idea for this course. So what I thought is to build in the building section. I was having ideas in my mind that we have to build like 4 or 5 buildings to attend the demand and to attend the service of the proposed model. But obviously we can adjust to our budget. I know there is not a plain thing to do on the first phase and the second phase. There are different budgets, but we decided to put all these similar numbers in the phases, and then we can adjust precise the budget in each phase. But I think that we can work also with this model, having the experience of our own agency where we work for within the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, maybe not Anibal, but the other ones, not Megan too, but we work at ReadyX. That is it's an agency of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. And I was inspired, like in the budget of ReadyX in the first 4 years, that were $20 million for the 4 initial years, and divided in 5 million per year. So, well, obviously it's not the same thing to establish and start up an agency like ours and then establish a technological park. But we can at least theoretically work with this budget and then adjust in the first phase. We can adjust our budget to our necessities in each phase. That is.
Yes, and another thing, I don't know if you can hear me well, is that we decided to come through all the exercises to get in the scheduled time. So for us, what was very important to come through all the activities and to put it in the time you asked it. That's why maybe in some cases we didn't find the right information, and we want to be clearly and honestly as well. So we put, for example, not available. But maybe today we can reach again and find that new information. But it was important for us to come just timing to be in time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. So just a moment. Yeah, until now we have 2 presentation and question and answer. So yeah, please remember that you should submit modified action plan from until tomorrow, and you should submit your answer to post survey. And we have 1 more week. So if you have more questions about this, you can leave your question on Google Classroom, or you can give me any questions. Yeah, you can leave me via WhatsApp. So yeah, please remember to do 2 things. You have to submit modified action plan and your answer for the post survey. Okay, thank you so much for your time and your eager participation. And I think that it's a time to sum up. Okay. Yeah. Thank you everybody.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you.
Kamsahamnida.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Choi.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Actually, yeah, do not leave this conference room. Actually, Mr. Choi, the chairman, has a few things to add more. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
there are some tips for successful Technopark business. First, on the industry perspective, you should fix the strategic industry focused on the core areas drawn on the regions and regions strengths or priority before you establish the new technopark in your country. Second point, you should have a links or connection strategy between a similar institution such as STP and IP and any other SMEs supporting center. But I think the relationship between industry and economy is similar to two sharp side of swords. And local and central and local is the same. And industry and enterprise, including SMEs, is the same. So in order to find out the cause of depression or low growth in your country or any specified reason and the alternatives for new growth, there some need to shed light on discordance or disparity between industrial or social structural change and industrial innovation capabilities. I think that almost of things of them is industrial innovation capabilities. As you may know well, the industry economy environment would evolve into the platform economy. The platform economy enables value creating interaction between customers and providers, including service providers such as regional development agency. So the region-based developing for your country can be interpreted into the specified capability in the region. So at the point is especially Paraguay is have the specific detailed plan how to escalate or evolve from IP to Technopark model. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your.
Excuse me, I didn't understand if these were a question or a comment.
Yeah, it's some useful comment for developing your plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I thank you, Professor. I understand that you want us to be more specific in the transition phase from an industrial park to an STP and be more specific on what we add in each phase and how we get to the final problem. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, everybody, thank you again. And actually, I have one more thing to share with you. Yeah, these are Facebook and these are YouTube. So please click the button and subscribe. Okay. Thank you again, everybody. And yeah,
Sophia, sorry, quick question. You saw you had a schedule for tomorrow. Is there a real time closing ceremony or is that virtual?
No, it's just a virtual.
Oh, okay. So virtually tomorrow we have the closing ceremony. We have to finish the survey, Because we also have modules 7 and 8 due tomorrow and on Sunday.
Okay, right.
And then the feedback you give us today, we have to give you a modified action plan tomorrow. And
Yes.
you were also show, maybe you want to go back to the slide where it says the support or after the graduation ceremony. You are also giving us opportunity between November 6th to November 13th to work on more details of the action plan.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
If you have more questions, you can leave me. So yeah, on the day 13th November, we have confirmation of final version of action plan.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again, and thank you so much for your eager participation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
감사합니다. Bye bye.